Hello my friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome to video 1 of my Halloween 2020 card series. These will be all over the place, but I will have a playlist as I get more videos and try and keep things organized, all that fun stuff. And I'll also have it on my blog because I always link to the same series, like the videos, etc. Anyway, after a bunch of technical issues, that's all on my Facebook page. If anyone's interested, I have this video for you guys. So I started with some dark gray cardstock, and I'm working on my little Wendy Vecchi Make Art station here. And I'm using My Favorite Things Rolling Clouds stencil and white pigment ink, and then just a blending foam. I have this one attached to one of my Tonic blenders. The Ranger ones work fabulous too. This one, because it's the different shape, I keep this one and this one foam dedicated to just my white pigment ink so that I don't get it contaminated with other colors, etc. So I did very simple blending here, like just kind of pulling the ink off the stencil. It's not perfect. You can see marks from the foam. I don't care because I'm going to do a ton of splatter. I had so much fun. I went all out with this. So to have the dark gray cardstock, the white ink for the blending, I'm starting with, this is Grape Fizz Perfect Pearls. They came out with a bunch of colors, like some new colors like a few months ago. And for whatever, I ordered all of them. Just because it's pretty and shimmery and I like to have it. So I put a little bit of water on the craft sheet here on my little Wendy Vecchi station. And then just mixed it with a bunch of the Perfect Pearl powder. So I've just got this pretty purple mixture and splattering this all over the background. Just using a paintbrush. I have my little splat box here to somewhat contain, but as usual, I had purple I still have purple splatter just everywhere. Anyway, after I did this step, I realized this will make things easier if I do everything in the same step, because while I was doing it, I was like, ooh, I should do the envelopes too. So I'm taking the craft sheet off my Wendy Vecchi station and just setting it aside because I didn't want to get that purple everywhere because there was still a fair bit left. And then I have two matching. These are, is it slate? Steel? I have links. Anyway, it's the same color as the cardstock. I have these envelopes and I'm just using that same stencil and just doing very quick and simple blending with that stencil on these envelopes. So getting that all on the back of these, just flipping the stencil around. I sped this up in editing, but even then, it didn't take very long. And just adding all of that fun little stencil background. And I'm going to do this to both of the envelopes. So then once these are covered, then I can do all my fun splattering. And with things like this, with really busy envelopes, either I will write the address with like a Sharpie marker. Like you want to make your address legible, obviously. So I either use a Sharpie marker or more often than not, I just print off a label. I got one of those little Dymo label printers and it just makes my life easier when I'm sending out cards and whatnot. So I do things like that, but as long as you do something really bold and dark, so it's legible, that the post office can read it, you're good to go. So I did my envelopes, added that purple splatter. I let the purple splatter dry, and then I pulled out my go-to, which is my Ranger Perfect Pearl powder, just the regular Perfect Pearl powder that I have in my little mini mister bottle. I just put powder in there, add some water, shake it up really well. It always settles to the bottom, that's the nature of it. So every time I go to use it, I have to shake it up. I've had to refill this bottle a couple times now because I love it so much. And because of things like this. So rather than using a paintbrush this time, I just took the nozzle out of the bottle and like shook it. That's how you get the big splatter. The paintbrush works for smaller splatter. If you want really fine splatter, I've shown in other videos, I use an old toothbrush. You get that more like mist almost. And then if you want big splotchy splatter, either use a larger brush or in this case, like I said, I'm just using the nozzle of the bottle and just kind of flicking it and it just gets those big splats everywhere. So did all that, same thing. Set this aside to dry, went and dealt with kids, etc., etc. After these ones were dry, I did my final bit of splatter. Told you guys it's like when I do, you know, more normal, I don't know what you would call it, you know, cards that just don't have splatter and bling. And everyone always comments like, oh my goodness, you know, Amy not doing splatter and bling. Well, I always make up for it by doing 10 times more. This is one of these cases. So for the black splatter, I'm using Ranger Distress Black Soot paint. The paint is very liquidy. You can see it there kind of right on the very edge there. I just put it on the craft sheet. That is how it naturally is. You don't need to add water to it. It is a very liquid consistency, which I love, because a lot of times with black, like black craft paints, if you water them down, you know, it dilutes the color and it's not black anymore. But with this, it works great. My only thing is you need to remember it is permanent. So you want to make sure you don't get it where you don't want it, and clean your tools. Like I wash out my brush with soap and water after working with these paints and wipe off my work surface and I'm good to go. So did all that fun splatter. After it was all dry, I die cut it with one of the A2 stitch rectangle wafer dies from MFT. And I also ran these through after that with the sentiment part of the Hey Ghoul Die-Namics. I had die cut them from purple cardstock first, and then I was looking at it and I was like, I am not going to sit here and like line up each individual letter, make sure they're straight. I'm like, I ain't got time for that. So the easiest thing to do was to die cut it from my background. I put purple tape on the back just to hold everything in place. And then I'm going to adhere those purple letters right on top. So now they're lined up perfectly. This took little to no time at all. All I did was just add my craft tacky glue on top of each letter. And then I was picking up the purple cardstock letters with my little Studio Caudia embellishment wand and pressing them into place. So much easier. I need to remind myself of this little technique more often, because I will usually avoid wafer dies that have a lot of letters and they're not connected. Because a lot of the words usually are connected, so it's all one piece, it's super easy, etc. But when it's individual letters, I'm just like, no. But this was easy, and I liked how it looked. So I just went along and kept popping out the letters out of the wafer die, adding just really thin amounts of the craft tacky glue, like any liquid glue would work, and then just pressing each letter into place, and then I'm good to go. So I kept going along, and everything I'm doing twice, because I was just having fun with this whole thing. It's like, why not make two while I'm, got all the supplies out. So now for the next super fun part is, of course, glow-in-the-dark embossing powder. For these cards, I'm using Wow Embossing's glow-in-the-dark embossing powder. I also showed the Lawn Fawn container. There's Brutus Monroe also makes one. I will link to the different options in the supplies. They're all great. They all work pretty much exactly the same from what I've noticed. It just depends on, what's in stock, etc. But this stuff is fun. And again, I've done a few videos using the glow-in-the-dark embossing powder, and it just, and I'll show at the very end too. I will show what that looks like when it is used in the dark. So I die cut the little ghost. This is from that same Hey Ghoul die set. I die cut the ghost from white cardstock. I created the little handles from the purple, just scraps of the purple cardstock, and I just washi taped to the back just to give me something to hold. So I could completely cover the die cut with clear embossing ink. I'm just flipping it over, pressing it into my ink pad to completely coat it. I covered it with the embossing powder, just working over a coffee filter, melted it, and then I repeated the process a second time just to make sure it's completely covered. This will tint whatever you're working on. It will tint it that yellow glow in the dark sort of color because it's not clear. It doesn't matter what you try and do. That's just glow in the dark pigment has that like yellow tint. I'm fine with it because it's so cute. It just works. So once I've done 2 coats, I can peel off my little handle and it works perfect. So I did that to both little ghosts. So now they're both coated with that embossing powder. And then I can funnel that powder back into the container and put the lid on it before I knock it over. And then now I can go on to finishing these cards. So for the little eyes and mouth of all of these die cuts, I just cut black cardstock. Simple and easy. Just scraps of black cardstock, and I'm just going to adhere them to the back of these just to fill that all in. So added the adhesive, put that into place, and then I do that to both of these glow-in-the-dark ones, and then I'd also die cut a couple from just white cardstock that I'll use on the inside of the cards. So went along, did that, and then there's a little wafer die that die cuts the cheeks, so you can add that if you want to these, which I thought was really cute. So I just die cut some orange cardstock scraps with that wafer die, and then I'm just going to adhere these into place in the same way that the letters. I just pick it up with my little embellishment wand, and I'd already applied the adhesive to all of them, and then stuck those into place. It's just so cute. Love it. So did all of that. My card base is the same gray cardstock. I cut a sheet of the cardstock in half, so it was 4¼ by 11. So I scored it at 5.5. So these will be top folding A2 cards. So I have both my card bases, and then I have some pattern paper from the new Creepy Confections paper pack from MFT. And I had die cut the pattern paper with the largest of the A2 stitched rectangle stacks. So I die cut the orange patterns for the front of the card, and then there's a similar kind of more white pattern that I die cut to use on the inside of the card. And to finish that off before I adhere it, I pulled out the Sassy Pants Spooktacular set, and I'm going to line up the little ghosty I'm going to adhere there, and then I just used the Happy Halloween from that set, and line that up in my Mini Misty, and I'm going to ink that up with Seedless Preserves Distress Oxide ink, stamp that onto the pattern paper, do that for both cards. Once that's stamped, I can then adhere the ghosts and the pattern paper to the inside of both of these cards, which also alleviates anything. It's not bad with this gray cardstock. You can write with a black pen and see it just fine. But at times when you use, like, say, black cardstock for your card base, that sort of thing, this is one way to get around it, or to just put in a piece of white cardstock if you want. But I always like to add, you know, little embellishments and pattern paper and whatever just to finish off the insides. So I adhered those little ghosties, and then I can adhere the pattern paper inserts, which I had die cut with that stitch rectangle die as well, just to keep it consistent. Plus it just adds that little extra, you know, cute element to it. So adhered that to the inside of both of these cards. And then once these are adhered, I can start assembling the outside of the cards, which again, I kept fairly simple since I went all out with the stenciling and splattering, and then I've got the glow in the dark, but even then I'm still going to take it up another notch. It's the first Halloween card in my series this year. I had to go all out, and I was having so much fun. It was ridiculous. So I'm going to adhere the orange pattern paper to the outside of these cards, and then the backgrounds, again, I had die cut with one of just the smaller stitch rectangle wafer dies. So I adhere the pattern paper, and then I'm going to adhere the stenciled backgrounds to both of these cards. Again, just using my craft tacky glue, keeping everything as flat as possible because I'm going to add a fair bit of dimension in a second. So just putting that craft tacky glue, I'd use the purple tape on the back. I could have just glued cardstock. Anything would work to hold those letters in place. So adhered those into place, and for the little ghosts, I pulled out my little action wobblers. These are super, super fun. I've shown these in a ton of different videos. So you just peel off the backing off of one side. I'm going to press that to my little ghost, and then I peel off the backing off the other side and press that onto my card. And then I've got this cute little action wobble ghost that goes quite flat. Again, I'll show at the end of the video how they go flat, and you can put it right in the envelope and you're good to go. So pressed him into place, played with it for a couple seconds, and then I'll adhere the second little ghost into place the exact same way. So got those into place, and as always, you could stop here, but I'm going to add some bling because why not? So got those into place, and then I pulled out some Studio Caudia iridescent stars. Those went just perfect with these little backgrounds. Some iridescent stars and some Studio Caudia onyx crystals, just to, you know, add that finishing little element to both of these. So I poured some of these out, placed them onto both of these cards, and once I was kind of happy with where I had everything, I'm just going to adhere these into place with dabs of the craft tacky glue and my embellishment wand, and that's going to finish off the cards. So as I do with glow in the dark, I activated it with my flashlight and the lights on, and then I took them into my closet because it's the only place in my house that has no windows and I can get it like pitch black. Took them into the closet and then took a picture so you guys can see how fun and how bright these glow in the dark. So much fun. There's something about glow in the dark and Halloween that I just love. So yeah, the action wobbler, you just press it down just like so. It goes flat. You can mail it. You're good to go. And then when you open the card, it pops up and you can, you know, bounce them around. It's just fun. And then I've got the shimmer from the Perfect Pearl powder mixtures that I did the splatter with and the embellishments. And then, of course, the glow-in-the-dark portion of these fun little ghosts. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I will have a supply list with links to all the supplies I used. And check it out below if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!